All right, guys. Well, I don't know how much more of this studios and developers tanking their own game I can take, to be honest. Like, especially when it's these games that people seem to genuinely love, like Helldivers 2. And if you're not sure about what I'm talking about, it just came out within the last 22 hours that Helldivers 2, with their partnership with PlayStation, decided that it was time to release this announcement that apparently you have to have a PlayStation account to continue playing Helldivers 2. And that's not just if you're playing on PlayStation, that's if you are on Steam as well. Which Nina Infinity points out, like, their attitude about nerfing and telling players how to have fun and now this, the devs are a bunch of automaton commies, I think is pretty spot on. Honestly, a lot of people freaked out about the wokeness in Helldivers 2 when we had the community manager with the flags in the bio and Free Palestine and all that other stuff in the bio of their Twitter account. And then we kind of backed off and said, that's just the community manager. That's no reflection on the developers or the studio themselves. But now we're seeing decisions like this. And the update here from Helldivers says, attention Helldivers, due to technical issues at the launch of Helldivers 2, we allowed the linking requirements for Steam accounts to a PlayStation Network account to be temporarily optional. That grace period will now expire. See details in the post below. And again, the reason for this, you could argue there's actually several significant reasons for why they're doing this now, where they're rolling it back and saying, well, that temporary, option is now done. You now have to have a PlayStation account. Now, again, people have made the argument, well, if you're going to play Electronic Arts games on Steam, you have to have an Electronic Arts account. And I've dealt with this being a Game Pass customer for a long time on my PC. I am sick and tired of having to have a different launcher for every game that I get to play through Game Pass. It is annoying. It is obnoxious, especially when the launchers pop up randomly. I can't find the settings to disable them. Most of them have one game out of the entire library of Game Pass that I have to install the dang launcher for in the first place. And otherwise, I just don't use it. And now these people are like, oh, what's the big deal? Just make a Sony account. Come on, man. Well, the real big issue is the fact that people don't want to have to do it, because Sony has been censorious in the recent past, and we've seen it with Stellar Blade, we've seen it with a lot of the actions they've taken with, finding new ways to ban people for saying things that they don't like online. On top of this, we are seeing, once again, pushback against the gamers, against the fans of the game, against people who are opposed to making unnecessary Sony PlayStation accounts from Helldivers 2's community managers. And this article from that Park Place kind of spells it out perfectly. It's this person on their Discord who goes by the name of Spitz. So it's Helldivers 2 community manager Spitz claims that negative feedback from players regarding the game requiring a PlayStation Network account in order to play it on Steam will not make a difference. I beg to differ, because I have not bought this game yet, and this will now affect my decision to purchase the game. So the article says Sony announced on the official forum that on Steam that the game would require players to have the PlayStation Network account linked to their Steam account. And one other thing about this, now that I think about it, EA, which is a garbage company anyways, required me when I downloaded, because don't hate me, I still have Apex Legends installed on my computer, although I do not play it, except for once every 6 months when my oldest son wants me to play with him. So then I noticed when I went to play the game that he couldn't use the Xbox with me at the same time, because although they were not the same account when I first set up the account for Xbox, EA decided to merge my gamer tag on Xbox, on my Game Pass account, with my EA account. And so I had to create a second EA account just to play with him, because it was merged them into one account. That's what's so freaking annoying about these secondary accounts you have to have, especially once they link them and you go, well, now it basically thinks about it like it's one account. So there's that. Anyways, Sony stated, due to technical issues at the launch of Helldivers, we allowed the linking requirements for Steam to be temporarily optional. Right. Then you get down to Spitz over here, his response on Discord to the gamers themselves. Spitz says, Sony's the publisher and needs a way to ban PC players. Aha! Well, there it is right there. That's the real answer. Right now, they can only do that by having to send a name to Valve and wait for Valve to action the ban. If players are required to have a PSN linked to their Steam, Sony can just ban the PSN to keep them off the game instead of having to go through Valve. Well, there's your answer. He went on to say, if a Sony account isn't required to play the game, isn't connected to Steam, it's very hard for Sony to track player accounts. Steam doesn't allow us to have any way to keep track of unique player IDs through our systems, and since players on Steam can have all duplicate usernames, if we get a report for a user named John, for example, we have no idea of which of the 450,000 players named John we're trying to ban. This is just Sony trying to be a babysitter or a nanny for the gamers online because they don't want to, they want to be able to ban the players who say the naughty words is what this comes down to. They say the panel has been unchanged since the game was listed on Steam, and making an account with an email pass in 5 minutes to link it and forget about it really isn't a huge deal, to be honest. Again, I beg to differ. On top of the fact, if you think about it, Sony, theoretically speaking, would gain a whole bunch of users to report to their shareholders, correct me if I'm wrong, if all these people on Steam simply signed up for a Sony account just to play a game through Steam that they're already playing, it would make it look like Sony has an increase in players. I mean, am I wrong? Am I crazy? Wouldn't that artificially inflate the numbers of their users and thus create an increase in their stock, in their share revenue? I mean, in their stock prices? It could create an artificial bump. I mean, maybe it's just like a wild conspiracy theory, but who knows? Maybe that's why they did it. So Spitz went on to say, if you dislike the requirement to link your account, you're more than welcome to change your Steam review to negative or do whatever it takes to make that dislike known. But attacking Arrowhead devs, the community team, our moderators, or any other person who has no control or input into the change isn't going to help anyone. Feedback is always listened to, most of it's passed on, and most of what is passed on is considered and goes into what changes we make. When it comes to a requirement from Sony that has pre-existed since launch, I don't think feedback is going to change much, and this is where it gets really nasty. He said, it's not like this is the first or even the 14th mainstream game to require a third-party account that takes a couple minutes to create, but if it's a deal breaker to have to take 120 seconds out of your day to enter an email and password, then forget about it. Change your Steam review and make your displeasure known on a platform where it matters. And this person says this will kill Helldivers 2 on Steam, backpedal or lose your player base, and they responded with, I thought you were refunding and leaving. So these community managers for Helldivers 2 are just nasty, nasty individuals. And you can see another one here goes by Misty, said, hey, this isn't true. Due to the overwhelming amount of people trying to link their accounts, the whole login process broke and people couldn't get into the game, which is why they temporarily limited it, right? Where you didn't have to create a PlayStation account. Someone says, and yet people still couldn't get in. It's a process to force people into an ecosystem when they don't want to because Sony thinks it'll make people pay for their products. And Misty responds with, no, it allows us to ban people. That is the sole reason. They said, what, you couldn't ban them before? And Misty says, we could, but this increases the effectiveness of what we can do. There are certain legal requirements we have to follow to ban people. This will help us out with that. Also, dealing with support tickets all day. Unfortunately, a lot of people encounter cheaters and harassment. Hopefully, this will help us tackle the problem. Again, it's people who want to play Mommy or Nanny or, Big Brother and watch everything you do. Ironically, Misty is a she, her, supposedly with a transgender flag in the bio. So interesting that there's several of these who are community managers at Arrowhead for Helldivers. Very strange. You see Quarter Black Garrett saying, I enjoy how the just make an account dipshits are getting absolutely demolished and outnumbered, and they are, because people are I had one person try to gaslight me and say, but EA already makes you do it. And why is that a good thing? Anything EA currently does should not be the standard for how the gaming industry treats players. I'm sorry. You can see Dexerto pointing out that the game is being negatively review bombed. Even the CEO of Arrowhead points it out that the reviews are now, they've gone from mostly positive all time to recently they've gone to mixed. Dread Roberts over on YouTube points out this massive dip in negative reviews that you can see all happen all at the same time, where originally it was trending mostly positive over a few negative over time. It's just this huge bar of negative reviews. Savvy Artist, of course, has pointed out that Sony has been very censorious. They've done a lot of things with TV patents involving ads, NFT integration. So anything where you honestly think giving this much power to Sony is a good thing is just a recipe for disaster, as she points out. So she does a lot of good threads on Twitter. I would say go check her out, Madam Savvy on Twitter. She has a lot of great insight into these situations. Sid Alpha points out something, says they sure as hell better honor a refund. None of this 2-hour Windows stuff either. It's literally become a non-working product thanks to Sony dicking around. And it's pointing out a tweet here from Johan talking about that there is a list of countries that cannot make a PlayStation account. Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Andorra, the list goes on and on. Egypt, Jordan, Lithuania, these are all countries where you can't apparently make a PSN account. So if people had bought the game through Steam in these countries, they will no longer be able to play the game. And of course, Grums points out that the Helldiver community manager Spitz, that his tone-deaf messages are now being purged from the Discord. Maybe he's getting a, quote, talk. I don't know about that. We'll see how that goes. And right on time, Master of the TDS points out that Helldivers 2 is getting a massive bump in bot traffic basically saying how, I can't wait to gear up and blast some new bugs, excited for the new Warbond content. Awesome news, can't wait to gear up and take on those bugs in Helldivers 2. Exciting news, can't wait to try out their updated arsenal. Just, it's like right on time. They know that this negative press is going to hit, and so all of a sudden, they just start running the bots. It is absolutely, like, it's like clockwork at this point. Honestly, I don't know who they think doesn't realize that these are bot accounts. Most people know how to identify a bot just by looking at it. But yeah, you had the CEO coming out saying, for everyone in regards to account linking and questions there too, please reference this link. And then Grums pointed out and said, fix your community managers. They are creating a PR disaster for you, showing Spitz's previous Discord posts. And the CEO responded, I understand that linking accounts and signing up for additional services may not be something that some users would like to do, and that needs to be respected. While the Steam page has always shown the requirements on the game page, I wish we'd been more clear with the long-term intent to not disappoint any of the divers out there. And then somebody said, let me start by saying, I know it's not you guys, but Sony who's holding the metaphorical gun here, but some countries that have your players literally cannot make PlayStation Network accounts because Sony does not recognize them on the PlayStation Network. What's going to happen to those players? And he responded and said, we're discussing that question with our partners at PlayStation and trying to find a solution. Sure you are. Someone else said, it's also the fact I'm forced to hand over a phone number, ID, or facial scan just to make the bloody account in the UK. Xbox doesn't ask you for that sort of stuff when you make it. And that's true. I can attest to that. And that's not a Xbox fanboy versus PlayStation fanboy thing. That's just a fact. They also said, also the fact that they've had so many data breaches, so I doubt said information is safe in their hands. And of course, he responds, is this true, ID or facial scan? Yeah, it's 100% true. Go look it up. It is crazy the amount of control Sony is trying to amass over their player base. And anybody who thinks it's okay to just grant them this one more thing, where now you have to have this account just to play a game that you purchased through Steam, through an actual game store online, is mind-blowing. Anybody who thinks this is okay, I don't know what to say to you or what to do to you to like shake you and wake you up to realize this is just one more situation where we've seen Ubisoft talk about own nothing, be happy, get used to not owning your games. Now everything's moving to a streaming service. People are no longer printing physical discs. And now just to play a game on Steam, you have to freaking create another account, another account, another account. And every time you do that, your data gets shared between these companies that do all this monitoring. And if you get banned on one, think about it. If Sony PlayStation, if they ban you for harassment, don't you think eventually they'll share that with Microsoft and Microsoft will ban you on Xbox as well? It could all like have this massive trickle effect and people aren't even thinking about that. So I'm going to stop ranting. I'm going to leave it right there. But I think this is just absolutely brain dead on Sony and Helldivers' part, if by extension they had anything to do with this. Let me know what you guys think down below and I'll catch you later. All right, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for being here. I do have two channels, Minimal Effort Podcast, as well as my gaming channel. I do have a Twitch and Kick for my gaming channel. We do live streams over there occasionally, maybe once a week. And then if you are in the market for a new PC, make sure to check out Meta PCs. Click the link I have down below. Use code TBO at checkout for a special discount. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.